Great to have you. When you consider the rhetoric we have heard from President Trump just in the last 24 hours, let alone over the course of the last 10, 11 days, where are we right now on the escalatory or de-escalatory curve?
I mean, wandering all over the parking lot. This is a war of choice, not necessity. And wars of choice, wars of discretion. The metrics and standards for evaluating success are much higher because presumably in a war of choice, there was no imminent or immediate threat to the security or prosperity of the United States. And frankly, as of February 23rd, that statement still stands. The administration has toggled back and forth. I think they've settled, more or less, on the narrative that not only did the president and the Israelis help kill these Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, and by the way, this is a transformative act. There's no doubt about it. Iran is not going to be the same country after the decades rule of a guy who basically championed death to Israel, death to America, used proxies to spread Iranian influence in 4 or 5 capitals, and frankly bankrupted the country by the pursuit of a nuclear weapon, or at least a nuclear weapons program. But I think they've settled on a narrative that they have basically undermined, to use the president's favorite word, obliterated Iran's capacity to project its power abroad, and with the Israelis, taken a major whack at the instruments of state repression that have been used to repress and oppress demonstrations and the Iranian public for decades. Regime change? No. I think after 11 days, it seems to be clear that the headline is the trend line, that this regime, the IRGC, and remember, to control Iran, you need access to money, you need access to guns, and you need access to oil. And the fact is, there's only one organization, security services, and the IRGC, that has that sort of influence and power. So 11 days in, I mean, can we speculate? The war could be over next week. It could last for another several weeks. This is the problem with a war without defined objectives.
Well, so we have a new supreme leader. The regime is holding, as you're pointing out here, Aaron David Miller, and we wanted to talk to you about some of the sunlight that we're finding between U.S. and Israeli objectives. Does the Ayatollah's son, the new supreme leader, have a price on his head? Does he need to stay indoors for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I would think, Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, the Israelis killed in the fall of 2024. His successor, Hashim Safieddin, lasted 6 days. Maybe Mujtaba Khamenei will last longer. But I think, no, the Israelis are going after leadership targets. They live in the neighborhood. And on this one, look, let's be clear. We're Venus, the Israelis are Mars. The Israelis really do have an existential threat should Iran actually cross the nuclear threshold from a threshold weapon state to an actual weapon state. So they're in that respect, Benjamin Netanyahu, I think, would like to see the war last for another several months so the Israelis can continue to degrade not just Iran's ballistic missile production and its inventory, but their leadership targets as well. But make no mistake, when Donald Trump decides the war is over, Benjamin Netanyahu will comply. Rarely has an American president, I worked in administrations from Jimmy Carter to Bush 43, and I'd throw in Obama and Biden into that mix. Rarely, if ever, has an American president had more leverage over an Israeli prime minister. Because for Netanyahu, the one organizing principle in 2026 is not Iran, it's not Gaza, it's not Lebanon. It's re-election. And the fact is, if the government goes to term in October 2026, or if elections are advanced, which they may be, until June or July, Benjamin Netanyahu needs Donald Trump as an active campaigner, not as a passive one, an active campaigner, which means that when Trump says jump, the issue for Netanyahu, maybe I'm phrasing it a tad too strongly, is how high. So no, if Donald Trump wants the war over and the Israelis to stand down or to de-escalate or push it into another phase, Netanyahu is going to comply.
But what about Iran? Is Iran likely to comply?
And that is the key issue. Will the Iranians let Donald Trump de-escalate? That is a critically important question, because what Iran has now established is, one, regime stability and the cohesiveness of the Revolutionary Guard, and two, that what we're calling horizontal escalation. They can't go up directly against the U.S. military or the Israeli military, but they can escalate horizontally over a discrete area, and they're demonstrating with a terrifying clarity the power they have, and they probably latent capacity if they're holding stuff back, and I think they are, to basically make life extremely uncomfortable, both for oil markets and for the Gulf states, who crave security and stability, and thought, when they allowed the Chinese, Saudis, to broker this détente between Iran and Saudi Arabia, that's what they were getting. And look, guys, in this part of the world, geography is destiny. And as far as the Gulf states are concerned, yeah, they can continue to rely on the United States, but it hasn't stopped the Iranians from disrupting life basically as they know it. The proximity guarantees vulnerability, and they are vulnerable.
It's great to have you back. Aaron David Miller, Senior Fellow, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. We've been looking forward to this conversation, Aaron. Thank you for being part of it. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington, alongside Kayleigh Lyons. The Tuesday edition of Balance of Power takes a strange turn today as we learn that the Energy Department has deleted the post that got the markets churning a short time ago for the better. We had a 7 handle on crude oil. And Kayleigh, it looks like we've given that up. About $81, still down quite a bit, down sharply, 15%. But evidence of a U.S. military escort for an oil tanker through the Strait got investors' attention. That is what Energy Secretary Chris Wright was announcing in the post. It has since been deleted. So we don't know if that did occur or if there are more nuances around this story. But Kayleigh, we're certainly pairing some of the losses that we saw before.
Yeah, so let's get into this now with Jeff Mason, who's a White House correspondent for us here at Bloomberg, here with us in our D.C. studio. Jeff, do we have a sense of whether this did indeed happen, and maybe it's just the rollout of communication failed, or was this something that hasn't happened yet and they jumped the gun?
No sense yet. It's very fresh. I will say that there's a White House briefing coming up at 2 o'clock, so that will be an opportunity to ask directly at the briefing what the deal is. Here are a couple scenarios. Number one, it could be that it didn't happen. You're right to ask that. Number two, it could be the communication issue. Number three, and related to number two, it could be that the secretary got ahead with what is major news of the president. And that's always a no-no in the cabinet. And President Trump in particular likes to announce big news. You may recall that the day that the Iran war was announced, we were waiting for confirmation that the supreme leader had been killed. That confirmation ended up coming directly from the president because that was a major headline and he wanted to make it. It's possible that that's the case here. I don't know that. Just laying out some potential scenarios.
Do you get the sense that this administration is aware of how sensitive the energy market is to each word that's coming out of the White House? Because the rhetoric has been a little confusing the last 24 hours.
True that. I think that the administration and the president himself are aware of the impact that this war is having on energy markets.
Sure.
Certainly aware of how important it is to bring those prices down. We've talked a lot on these shows and when we're together about the political impact of this war and the political risk of higher gasoline prices heading into the midterms for President Trump. So I think you saw some of that at play with his comments yesterday, suggesting that the war was going to end earlier than he has said, but then offering a contradictory comment on that later when he said that there could be even harsher attacks. So that's a long way of saying, Joe, yes, I think they do realize that, and yet it doesn't necessarily make them more careful.
Well, so regardless of what happened here, the fact that a post was made and then deleted, does that not just speak to the idea that across the varying cabinets within the Trump administration, there is a serious messaging challenge, an inconsistent messaging challenge when it comes to this conflict?
And on an issue that, as you just said, is super market moving. I mean, this is not just a message about something going on at the White House or a new event or whatever might end up on a social media post. This is something that is directly connected to the war, connected to to people's businesses and connected to financial markets.
So we're going to be hearing from the press secretary momentarily. Top of the hour, we're supposed to have a White House press briefing, whether it begins on time or not. As someone who spent a lot of time in that front row, what is her job today, and what's the question you'd be asking?
Well, I think because of the news that we just are talking about, I think my first question would be just that.
Yeah.
Did this actually happen? Can you tell us what happened? What ship it was? How did it go? And if not, then how in the world did it come out already and have to then be deleted by the Energy Secretary? Also, if it happened and you're confirming that, then why was the post deleted and what's the backstory there?
And would you expect an answer?
Not necessarily.
Okay,
Oh, Joe, you're putting me on the spot here. I think definitely she will come out with some kind of information about this. She can't really not come out without information about it, but we may not get all the backstory.
Yep. Well, we'll keep tabs on what is said in that briefing room with the help of Jeff Mason. Thank God you're on board, and thank you for jumping in here in the clutch with great analysis, as always. Kaylee, we'll keep our eyes on the Twitter feed, I guess, until the late edition of Balance of Power. God knows what can happen between now and then.
Yeah, and keep our eyes on the chart as well. WTI right now hovering just above $80 a barrel and waiting for any further word from the Energy Secretary, from the President, or any other in the administration. We'll see you later on here on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.